Southern Sports Roundup with your host, Vance.
Welcome to Atlanta, Georgia, y'all. Welcome to Southern Sports Roundup. Vance, live from Armada FM Studios. Vance with you. I got Ray on the wheels back there. Let's talk some Southern sports, y'all. And when you talk Southern sports, what emanates, what radiates, what shines above but college football? Woo! Go Dogs, I was saying on Friday. F you Dogs, I was saying Saturday night. That was terrible. That was abysmal. We fell on our faces. We didn't show a lot of heart, which is what really bugs me. I'm going to get all into that. I'm going to get all up into Mark Richt's business. I have to. I'm an alumni, class of 98, Big Hairy blog, BLAWG, that's my Georgia blog. But I can't sit by idly and correct and gloss over and make excuses for a performance like that where we fell down 31-7 in our biggest game of the year. Sure, we made the score a little closer, but 31-7. Back up a little bit, tell you who I am in case you don't know. I'm Vance. I've covered the University of Georgia Bulldogs and the SEC since 2007. In 2008, I officially launched BigHairyBlog.com. That's BLAWG, BigHairyBlog.com. 2010, we were in Atlanta Magazine, and we're the second fastest growing blog on all of WordPress. WordPress is the largest blog host in the world. Last season, I covered the Atlanta Hawks. My articles were on SportsIllustrated.com. I do some other things outside of the sports realm, sticking to the sports. I love my dogs. I love my SEC. I love college football. Southern Sports Roundup is an all-sports show. We're going to go as far up as D.C., as far down as Miami, as far out as Oklahoma and Texas. And we'll talk national if you want to talk national. But the reality is, in Atlanta, Georgia, this is the world capital of college football. College football is what matters, and I'm a college football expert. This is my third year as a radio man, including last season I was co-host of College Football Preview, where we covered in depth every SEC team, every SEC game. And I want to talk SEC. I want to talk SEC a lot, and this is my own show, so I'm going to do it. But let's just go ahead and kill those other sports quickly. Hockey, who cares? NASCAR, who cares? Golf, give me a break. Let's look at football. We're talking about this. Shoot them down. We're talking about the NFL. And we're talking about the South. Nothing is going on. Falcons, terrible. Saints, mediocre. Miami actually has shown some signs of life. So at the coffee house today, talking to a guy who's talking about how Tannehill, Johnny Football's predecessor, is really showing some sparks there. They've got some young talent. Some of the LSU guys are showing out. And they look like a team that can actually make some noise, Miami in the South. But look around the South, the NFC South, the AFC South, abysmal football. Best team in the South, in my opinion, professional football team is my Dallas Cowboys. I'm hail from Texas originally. They've lost 2 games in a row. Their quarterback's out. They're 6-3. So throw the NFL away. Let's talk about the NBA, the National Basketball Association. In the South, LeBron has left Miami. So Miami's not very relevant all of a sudden. Atlanta looks more relevant than they were. They got Horford back. That great Florida Gator, Al Horford, is back. They've got some good pieces with Millsap, Ice Teague rounding into shape. So they have some good pieces. They could win maybe 50 games, but it's the NBA. And honestly, not that many people care about an also-ran playoff team who's going to win 60% of their games and get bounced in a round or two. That's what the Hawks have been. And that's, I think they can be better than they've been. I think they can be better than they were last year. I start writing, covering them locally, and my articles are getting pulled up to SportsIllustrated.com. Immediately, they go in the tank and lose 8 games in a row. I'm not used to reporting on just bad news, but let's get right into that bad news and talk about the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. What an abysmal showing by my Georgia Bulldogs. The stats don't bear out how bad it really was when you look at what Nick Chubb did. Freshman Nick Chubb. I know. Crying time. 21 carries, 156 yards with a touchdown. And 5 catches with 50-plus yards, almost 60 yards, and a touchdown. Mason, 319 yards passing, no interceptions. That's by far the biggest game Mason's ever had. Thing is, though, Chubb gets 100 of those yards in the first quarter, and we're winning 7-0. And nothing happens right for Georgia. For 5, Florida scores 31 unanswered points. They just woodshedded us. We didn't have a second offensive playmaker. We have some decent receivers. We have a fairly deep receiving core. There's no one threatening to go over 100 yards a game. Got guys getting 60 yards receiving here and there. Malcolm Mitchell's coming back from an injury. He's not all the way there. Conley's okay. Bennett's okay. These guys aren't game breakers. Here's the real problem. Todd Gurley. When you lose the best football player in the country, you're going to drop some contests. So throw Mark Richt under the bus, and I'd like to take his face and just put it right under the bus right now. Don't get me wrong. But the thing is, he didn't get Todd Gurley to sign those autographs and take that money. They told him don't do it. They said it's against the rules. They said you're going to be suspended or worse, kicked out of school if you cheat. Gurley did it. He couldn't play. Best case scenario for Georgia at the time, realistically, of course I was more optimistic, but realistically was to still contend for the SEC East. Georgia's right there. The SEC East is a bad division. Missouri's in first place. I'm going to be getting a master's degree from Missouri in media management. So I'm sort of keeping an eye on Mizzou, not just because they're competitive with Georgia. I'm actually going to be a student there, get an online degree there. And Mizzou was beaten by Georgia 34-0. We absolutely woodshedded them at Mizzou. We took care of Arkansas. And I went to school in Athens. And I don't know if you've been up to Athens, but one thing it's known for is partying and pretty girls. And what happens when you're 20 years old and all these pretty girls like you? What happens when you're partying and everyone says, dude, you're the man? When you're 20 years old, what happens is you believe it. You believe the hype. So all of a sudden, Georgia, leading the nation in turnover margin. Georgia, number 2 defense, rushing defense in the SEC, doesn't come with moxie, heart, and fight for a real football game. And they got their butts handed to them in Jacksonville. 25 carries for Raines, 25 carries for Dempsey, 400 yards rushing. 400 yards rushing. That's Little League. Come on, you guys. The quarterback was his first career start, Tron. He throws 6 passes, and you lose. You don't just lose. You're down 31-7 to a mediocre to what's been bad Florida team. Now, getting off of Georgia for a second and getting on the Gators bandwagon. At the beginning of the season and in the offseason, I predicted Florida to have a big bounce back year. Everyone forgets, but 2 seasons ago, Florida was 11-2. They were 11-2. Their only losses were to Georgia and Louisville, and that was a great Louisville team that beat them. So they got Driscoll back. Why couldn't they win? They had all those injuries last year. Why couldn't they win? They've had a good defense. Why couldn't they win? They just haven't shown it yet. They're 4-3. Don't be surprised if Florida ends up 9-4. I picked them to be 10-2 at the beginning of it. Don't be surprised if they end up making a run. But Georgia's offense only scored 20 points. When you look back over that series over the past 4 games, Georgia won 24-20, 17-9, 23-20. So we were scoring the same amount of points. Florida's defense has been good and held us in check. But we would have needed Todd Gurley to keep up with their running effort. Their running effort was magnificent. All credit goes to them for that. And it's what the AJC called an inexcusable performance. And that was inexcusable. One thing that I have to differ with in the local Atlanta urinal and constipation was Charles Schultz said, this isn't like back in 08, 09, I think he was talking about, when Rick had lost a couple games in a row because there wasn't as much at stake. That is absolute and total BS, CS. Charles Schultz, you're wrong about that. Here's why. Georgia was the favorite by Vegas to win the national championship entering that game. You were only getting paid 5-1 if you bet FSU, if you bet Bama, if you bet Georgia. We had played ourselves into a position, and enough people had lost around us to where, and Auburn was still on our schedule. Potentially the SEC West champion was still on our schedule in the Georgia Dome. So we had played our way into a position to to where if we won out, we were probably going to win the national championship. Here's the thing. We're not completely eliminated yet, because do you honestly think? I've seen 2-loss teams like LSU, who lost to Kentucky and Arkansas, win the national championship before there was a playoff. I've seen Georgia be the 3rd-ranked team when we had 2 losses, and we're not as strong as we are this year. Do you honestly think the SEC champ is going to be left out of the playoff no matter who it is? I don't know. I could see a 1-loss team getting the nod over the SEC champion, but would that be fair? Would that be right? A champion's a champion, so I say Georgia still has something to play for. Let's look at Mizzou's schedule. They've got A&M. They've got Tennessee. They've got Arkansas. They're going to be favored in all those games. My grandpappy's school, A&M, struggled to beat Louisiana Monroe. They're not very strong. Missouri gets a week off and then goes to A&M. Goes to Tennessee, who finally got an SEC win. Goes to Arkansas, who's winless in the SEC the day after Thanksgiving. Maybe Missouri slips up and loses. Maybe Georgia plays their way in. And maybe they're that 4 seed. But when they first said there's only going to be 4 teams in the playoffs, you know what my prediction was? I said, that's just great. Because you know what Georgia's going to be? We're going to be number 5, baby. We're going to be number 5. And that's not much of a cheer. We're going to go to break. Coming right back. We're going to talk some more football, baby. What do you want to talk about? Let's talk football.
I'm Rachel Ray, and food is not only the way I make my living, it's how I spend time with my family and friends. It's hard to imagine true hunger, but sadly, 1 in 6 Americans don't know where their next meal will come from. They're your neighbors, your friends, your co-workers. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger to find out how you can make a difference. I'm Rachel Ray, and together, we are Feeding America.
A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.
So when you get to the corner of Smith and Orchard, you're going to want to take a
You
left.
are not going to
then
believe
what you're
this.
Gonna do is turn
Marcy
onto
and Brad just broke up,
and go past
and apparently
the first 3
she's
lights,
happy
and then
about
take
it.
the next left.
I don't really
Then
think
drive
she's
5 more
happy,
blocks,
but
and you should be
who am
there.
I to judge, right?
Park
anyway,
on the right.
that's
I'll
what
see
I
you
heard
later
last
tonight.
night.
It's hard to concentrate on 2 things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
The odds of becoming a signed artist and having 3 #1 albums? 1 in 100 million. The odds of going on to win 6 Grammy Awards? 1 in 1.4 million. The odds of this performer having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 110. I'm Toni Braxton, and I encourage you to learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org. Autism Speaks. It's time to listen. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. We back in Atlanta, Georgia, y'all. Let that punk rock roll. Woo! Southern Sports Roundup. Honish Vance with you. It's Han Vance coming to you live from Armada FM studios. Glad to be back in the west side of Atlanta, Georgia. I like what they're doing over here in the west side. It's really coming up. I'm Ponce for life. That means I'm east side. But east side, west side, ATL, we're in the house. And what do we talk about in the South? What do we talk about in Atlanta, the world capital of college football? primarily college football. Florida State, going back to Thursday, they really impressed me. Florida State gets down to Georgia's former defensive coordinator, now the defensive coordinator at Louisville, Todd Grantham, over there with Bobby P. They're only 4-3, but they had some injuries early. They had some guys not playing, and they had the number one defense in the country. They're at home. They have a history of upsetting people at home. They get Florida State down 21-0. See, Georgia was down 31-7 and barely showed me any fight, and that just disgusted me. But when you're down, it doesn't mean you're out. We all fall down. My producer, Ray, he falls down. I got a bust on my face right here where I fell down. We fall down. You got to get back up, folks. Gators held us down. Their cross-state rival, upstate rival. Seminoles got up in a big way. Jameis Winston is like unbeatable. He's never lost a game. When you say you're unbeatable, what does unbeatable mean? Well, he's never lost a game. That's pretty good. So he's never lost a game at FSU. They've won 23 straight. Even the game he was out, they beat Clemson, who's probably the second best team in the ACC. They're down 21-0 on the road. Could have packed their bags and said, we might still make the playoff. No. They fought back and they found a way to win. And Florida State has found a way to win against Notre Dame. They found a way to win against Clemson. They're not playing a great schedule, but they're winning football games, and they're getting it done. They have moved to 8-0, y'all. They're basically a lock. Florida State is basically a lock for the 14 playoff. Perhaps that Texas Christian University Horned Frogs are going to get in there. They're getting a lot of shine because they have such an explosive offense, and they've been a pretty good defense. They nipped West Virginia 31-30 in Partytown, Morgantown, where they burned the couches, and there was no couches getting burnt that night. ECU came back from a 13-point deficit and won the game. But no one's talking about Baylor. Baylor beat TCU. Baylor has the lead in the Big 12 over TCU. And why is no one talking about them? They're just not as sexy as TCU is for some reason right now. TCU having that really explosive offense, but Baylor has been explosive for some years. And they lost to K-State. It's kind of a three-team race with the spoiler clearly being Oklahoma. My cousin Paige's team, OU, much like Georgia, has lost 2 games. The playoff is a stretch. It's probably not going to happen. But, you know, a team at the end of the year who's lost 2 games is a great football team. It's not over. The season isn't over. The year isn't over when you've lost 2 football games. LSU has a lot to play for. Oklahoma, Georgia, they have a lot to play for. So 2 games, you know, when you're 4-2, when you're 2-2, when you're 6-2, doesn't look that great. You're not going to be getting ranked. When you're 10-2, when you're 11-2 at the end of the year, LSU won the national championship with 2 losses, y'all, and they lost to Arkansas, Kentucky in the last half of the schedule. And that was when there was only 2 teams making the championship round. So don't tell me it can't happen. A 2-team loss may end up in that 4-team playoff, and there could be 2 or 3 of them. It's just reality. Everyone wants to think that they're going to continue to win out, and it just doesn't happen. It never happens. It doesn't happen like that. FSU's undefeated. They keep getting by. Mississippi State is undefeated. They eked out a win over Arkansas. They were down 10-0. They had to get a late interception or Arkansas would have tied them. Arkansas doesn't know how to win games. Mississippi State has learned how to win. You got to know how to win. You know who knows how to win right now is another private school right up the street from Atlanta, Georgia, not too far away, 1 state up. That's the Duke Blue Devils. Duke plays Pittsburgh in a game. So the kicker from Pitt is going to end the game with a win. His name is Blewett. So he did. He goes in there. He blows it. He shanks it. It goes to overtime. This game had 1,000 yards of offense. Georgia could have used some of that offense. And Duke only has 1 loss after having a really good year last year. Clemson in the ACC only has those 2 losses to Florida State and Georgia. They lost to some pretty good teams. Clemson's a pretty good team. Georgia Tech only has 2 losses. So the ACC is not just a basketball league right now. It does have some football prominence. But when I go down the conferences, I look at who's got a good conference. I'm definitely going SEC first. You've got Bama. You've got Auburn. Ahead of them, you've got Mississippi State. And in the West, A&M is also qualified for a bowl. Everyone except Arkansas is already qualified for a bowl. This is a game of inches and this is a game of pain and suffering. When you look at Laquan Treadwell and what happened to him at Ole Miss goes from number 3 in the country to 5th in the West by 1 inch. Amari Cooper, the great wide receiver at Alabama, and Laquan Treadwell from Ole Miss, also a young guy. He's younger and bigger than, much bigger than Cooper. He's a beast. Both of them had the same amount of catches over a 2-year span. And going back, and that was Treadwell's freshman year. Now, Cooper was a little down last year and is having a huge year this year. But when you added up the catches, those guys were on par to have the same type of production over a 2-year span. And that's Treadwell's whole career. He's having a great game against Auburn. He's got 10 catches, 100 yards, running in. I don't know if you guys back in the studio here saw that, but he's running in for the game-winning touchdown against Auburn. Gets tackled from behind, breaks his leg, dislocates his ankle, fumbles the ball on the goal line, and they go from number 3 in the country into 5th in their division. I mean, that's a harsh effing reality out in this world. Someone's going to grab you and just rip it from you, and that can happen in college football. I got to give kudos to the Auburn Tigers for surviving the game. They've been survivors. That's the same thing Florida State. They just keep surviving. Now, Mississippi State put the woodshed to Auburn, beat them up really bad. And I have a feeling Georgia's going to beat Auburn. But Auburn keeps surviving, and they're doing it behind Nick Marshall. They don't have the power running game that they had last year. They had a great left tackle. They had a great running back. And that running back got more yards than Bo Jackson did his best year at Auburn. So when you replace that with the top left tackle or second left tackle taken in the draft, that's not nothing. You know, I think we've beat this SEC horse pretty hard, and I think we've beat it pretty well. And I know my dogs are just beaten, so we got to pick up. We got a game against Kentucky. Let's pop over to the NFL. We want to do a little segment here. It's our A team and our Z team. Okay? We're talking fantasy football. Not my field of expertise, but I got my boy Jeff Dates, D-A-I-T-Z, Dates. We're going to talk A team and Z team. He's going to tell you who to play this week, who to sit on the pine. Jeff, are you there, brother?
Yes, sir. I'm here. How are you?
Doing well. Beautiful day on the west side. I'm over here by your place of business. Are you still working at the shop right up the street?
I'm still at the company, but I'm at the Highland location.
Got you. Keeping it east side.
Outside of that neighborhood.
Yeah, and that's the one I frequent with my daughter. That's my daughter's favorite restaurant. Anyway, Jeff was with 790 The Zone, which is a local radio station here. He's a big sports guy. Always see Jeff riding his bike, hangs around the neighborhood where I hang around, and just a great guy. But his field of expertise by far is something I don't know really a lot about, you guys out in Radio Land. I used to be a semi-professional gambler. I did that for 8 years. Love my college football, love my analysis, but I've never done the fantasy. I've never done a rotisserie league. Jeff, you're all about it, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, believe it or not, I started doing this when the USFL was still around, and this was like written up by hand, a bunch of guys getting in a room with some papers and magazines and, commissioner on a dry erase board, and, okay, you're up next. Oh, let's see, I'll take Steve Young, yeah. But it was fun. I mean, that was the beginning of
USFL, Herschel Walker's league.
I had Herschel on my team, Bobby Hebert, Steve Young.
The New York, New Jersey Generals, folks, owned by Donald Trump. They had Herschel Walker and Doug Flutie. Did they have Flutie?
Yeah, they did have Flutie.
They had Flutie for a while, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jeff, who you pulling? Who you playing? Who you plugging? Who you sitting?
All right, this week, the A team, first of all, LeSean McCoy is back. I think he's...
Shady.
He's Shady McCoy. He's
right.
shady as ever. He's getting back in his groove. And even though
he's back,
Nick Foles is out, I think my sleeper I'm going to jump over to really quick since they're on the same squad.
Yeah.
Sanchez at home on Monday Night Football. That's a good setup against the Jets. Start all your Steelers against the Jets. I mean,
all your Eagles.
Eagles, yeah. And so I think McCoy's back. Mark Sanchez, he's got a good situation, a lot of good weapons, good matchup. So I like him.
Well, and I ran into your boy Mike the other day earlier, and he was talking about the perfect coach setup for Sanchez. For Sanchez, I mean Kelly. Yeah.
And he's got weapons all over. You know, they've got Sproles they can drop it off to, good receivers. Macklin's red hot, on fire. So he's a good spot there. I love this Martavis Bryant, who's all of a sudden
the tight end.
the number 2 receiver. I think he's a wide receiver.
He's a big wide out, yeah. Big wide out.
Yeah. But
you're talking about the guy from, I apologize, I was thinking of the guy who played for the Cowboys for a while. You're talking about the guy who was with Sammy Watkins at Clemson, who didn't get as much shine because Sammy was the freak athlete. But Martavis Bryant, he's a giant. He's 6'4", almost 6'5". He can leap out of the gym. And he's got some skills. He's a matchup problem, that's for sure.
Yeah, and he's not a one-hit wonder. He's put up good stats all the way through, but now that Big Ben's on fire again, they've got a really great matchup too, and so I love him this week. Just as a guy that's not your everyday guy that you're going to, hey, I got to start, Gronk this week or whatever. He's not your flashy number 1 guy, but he's a sleeper. Good deal. Yeah, great sleeper. So bench-wise, Ryan Tannehill, I got to put him down.
Dolphins.
The Chargers, they tore up the Chargers pretty bad, but Detroit,
Jeff's from San Diego, by the way, folks. He's a San Diegan.
That's right.
Diego, bro.
That's right. But Tannehill, he's got a better defense going up against him this week. They're going to be on the road. Detroit's coming off a bye. I think it's all set up for him to just sort of be a little disappointing. Eli Manning is going into the 11th man zone in Seattle. Yeah, the Legion of Boom.
The Z team.
See if they're getting it back together.
They are.
Eli might throw for 2, but he might also throw for 2 the other way. So
I like him when a game's on the line. I've always liked Eli when the game's on the line. He comes up and does something good. Anyway, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us this week. That's your A team, your Z team. The Z's put him to sleep. The A team's number 1. Who you going to pull? Who you going to play? And Jeff Dates is going to be with us again, y'all. Look for Jeff on Southern Sports Roundup. Thank you, Jeff.
Right, thank you, sir. Yeah, man. Thank you. Take care.
I turned into a teenage Goo-Goo Muff. Yeah, I cruise through the city and I roam the streets.
So you take the mouse and click over there, and then you can choose someone you want to call.
My niece. I click here?
Uh-huh.
This is Louisa. Recently she got help going online to chat with her family back home.
Okay, so then you want to hit that green button.
This is her first time on the internet and her first time seeing her niece in 5 years. Louisa doesn't know what to expect.
Louisa? Oh my gosh, there she is. This is amazing. It's so good to see you. You look so pretty.
But this is definitely way beyond.
Oh my gosh.
See what the internet can help you do at everyoneon.org or call 1-855-387-9166 to find a free training class near you. That's 1-855-387-9166.
Oh, I've missed you. Oh, me too.
Brought to you by Connect to Compete and the Ad Council.
Did you just look down at your phone? You did it again, didn't you? You're flying down the road in a 3-ton hunk of steel, and a text takes your eyes off the road for an average of 5 seconds. At 55 miles per hour, that's long enough to travel the length of a football field and cause some serious damage. Turn it off. Trust me, whatever it is, you'll live.
Learn more at stoptextsstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
You might know me, I'm 50 Cent. You may follow my tweets, my Facebook friends. Odds are fewer than 6 degrees separate us. We're that close. What's crazy is 1 in 6 don't know where their next meal is coming from. These are your co-workers, your neighbors, your friends. Hunger's too close for us to ignore. So visit feedingamerica.org/hunger and find your local food bank to see how you can make a difference. From one close friend to another, let's do this. I'm 50 Cent, and together we are Feeding America.
A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Adopting a new pet is a rewarding experience. And Shelter Pets makes super pets. Your new best friend will steal your heart, bring you happiness, and enrich your life for years to come. You can make a difference in the life of an animal. Adopt and bring home a shelter pet today. To find out more, visit theshelterpetproject.org. This message has been brought to you by the Humane Society of the United States, Maddie's Fund, and the Ad Council.
Southern Sports Roundup, Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome back to Southern Sports Roundup, y'all. I'm Han Vance. I'm in the Armada FM studios. I got my boy Ray on the wheels of steel back there, spinning that punk rock. We're rocking and rolling in Atlanta. I loved it. I loved hearing from Jeff Dates. What a cool guy. Typical San Diegan. He's just a laid-back dude, but they're not laid back like nothing's going on. They're always active lifestyle, laid-back dudes. Like, I'm all about riding my bike. I'm all about surfing. I'm all about going down to Mexico and meeting some LBFMs. I cannot translate that. All right, let's segue right into something a little more politically correct than that. Let's talk basketball briefly. The usual suspects of any sport that is usual suspects, it's NCAA basketball. I mean, you could just predict the top 10 20 years from now, and you'd pretty much nail 8 or 9 of the teams. Kentucky, North Carolina, these same teams every year. It's just not fair if you're an outsider looking in. Are you ever going to have a shot? Are you ever going to have a shot? Probably not. I mean, if you're a University of Georgia, you're an Auburn, you're a team like that, you're not going to be able to compete with Florida and Kentucky because they've got it going. And basketball is a sport where you only need 3 to 5 good guys to really compete. Football, you need good bench players. You might go 2 weeks without a game. You might have a bye week. In basketball, your competition is not necessarily in practice. You're getting enough game competition. You're going to play on the court. You're going to play twice a week, maybe more. Football, you're not playing so often. You really got to have guys push you. So these programs, it's all one and dones. They get these players, especially Kentucky. Calipari's really streamlined what he's doing as it's a bunch of freshmen. They get all the good freshmen. They make a run. And it's just not that compelling during the regular season unless you're a diehard fan of a program, like a North Carolina fan, where you're going to sit there and watch every game, watch all 20 games. But what's amazingly compelling every year is March Madness. So my favorite sport, college football, obviously, has tried to emulate some of that magic, tried to replicate some of that college magic that really gets everyone excited about having this playoff. And I was on the record probably earlier than anyone in that I was just miffed. I was peeved. Why are we having a 4-team playoff for 100 teams? Come on, you guys. There's 5 big conferences. There's teams outside these big conferences that deserve a shot. Can't tell me, Utah, when Urban Meyer was there and went undefeated, went and won their big bowl game, I think it was the Sugar Bowl, or the Fiesta Bowl, didn't deserve a shot to be in a playoff. You can't tell me that you're going to win the Big 12 or Big 10 and not get in the playoffs because of a popularity contest. And programs like Bama, programs like Notre Dame, programs that the media loves to love are at a distinct advantage in this new system. They really are. I mean, Bama will lose a game and drop 2 spots. It just other teams lose, they're off the radar. It's just one of those systems that is almost unfair to the point that I don't want to watch, but of course I will, in that I want to see these teams, when they win a conference, get into the playoff, period. That should be an automatic ticket. If you win the ACC, the Big 12, the Pac-12, the Big 10, of course the SEC, you're going to get in. And then you could have, if you had 8 teams, you could have that one small team, that one also ran. And the reason I parlay that to use a gambling term, to basketball is what happens in the March Madness that makes it so exciting is these Cinderella stories. This team that comes out of nowhere, out of Virginia, out of Indiana, that isn't Indiana University, that isn't the University of Virginia, and makes a run and really makes it competitive. And even Butler went so far as to get into the championship game. The equivalent to Butler those years would be Marshall this year. Okay, Marshall's not playing anybody, and they're undefeated. But no one wants to schedule Marshall. People know they're hot. People know that they have a good program, and it's not someone they want to play. So honestly, it's unfair to them, but it's truly unfair to these, perhaps Michigan State as example. Michigan State could go out and win the Big Ten. They lost to Oregon. They're dead in the water. Oregon's going to get that slot ahead of them. There's probably going to be 2 SEC teams in there. That only leaves 2 slots. So there's going to be a lot of howling, and this playoff sounded like a great idea, and it is an improvement over what we had, but it's not a solution. It's really not a solution. And I hate to be a naysayer, but there's a reason they don't call it the playoffs. It's because it's not a real playoffs. They call it the college football playoff because there's one round. It's going to be annoying if you're not one of those teams, and it's going to be heartbreaking if you're a team like Michigan State was last year. No one was giving Michigan State any love, and everyone was on Ohio State, and Bama was going to make it. So Michigan State goes out. They would have been that 5th team out. They went and upset Ohio State, played their way into the Rose Bowl. No one gave them a shot in the Rose Bowl, and went and won the Rose Bowl. Oregon is one of those teams to me that Ohio State, Oklahoma, Oregon, these O teams aren't getting it done. They're always hyped. Everyone loves them. They want to watch Oregon. They want to see all this explosion, but they're not winning bowl games. They're not winning championships. And I was talking to a Pac-12 guy today. If you want your conference to shine, you have to win bowl games. You have to win non-conference games. It's just not happening historically for the Pac-12 ever since USC stepped away. So for me to believe in Oregon because they have cool uniforms and score a bunch of points, and their only real quality win is like Michigan State, or who should I believe? Who do you believe in college football? One thing I want to point out about the polls is these polls have become basically completely irrelevant. Everyone made such a big deal about the polls, and rightfully so. That's how we rank teams. That's how we have this information. But now that the College Football Playoff Committee is making their own poll, you can kind of throw these other polls out. The only thing they are is they come out earlier in the season, so they're useful for that if you want to see where you ranked early. They come out earlier in the week, so you can see them. But the polls don't matter. No one is infallible in college football. These teams, when we go down the line, Mississippi State barely struggling to get by. Florida State struggling to get by. Auburn already blown out by Mississippi State. Bama lost to Ole Miss. Oregon dropped a game to Zona and doesn't show up. They do the same trick every year. TCU looks good, but they've lost to Baylor. Michigan State lost to Oregon. Notre Dame lost to Florida State. On and on. Kansas State lost to Auburn. Baylor beat TCU, but lost to K-State. These teams are locked in there. They're packed in there. No one is differentiating themselves. This isn't a year to where there's like Bama was last year, even though Bama fell flat on their face and lost 2 games in a row. Ohio State fell flat on their faces, and the Ohio State, they ended up losing 3 games in a row. They went and lost the season opener the next year. These teams were on long winning streaks. They were on a collision course. It didn't happen. Anything can happen, but it's not a front-runner scenario this year. The closest thing we have to a front-runner is Mississippi State. Mississippi State's never done anything in the history of college football. They've never done anything in the history of college football. So if you're betting on Mississippi State, you're betting on a real wild card long shot that had no chance at the beginning of the year to come through for you. Florida State looks like world beaters in that they keep winning, but they're barely getting by. Can they barely get by for the rest of the year? Maybe so. Who knows? Anyway, we've only got one more segment left. Love being with you. Love talking that college football. Southern Sports Roundup from Atlanta, Georgia, Armada FM Studios. I'm Han Vance of Big Hairy Blog. That's BLAWG. BigHairyBlog.com. Southern Sports Roundup. We'll be right back.
District, drive down on Chum and Palms, white ghettos, paint up and shop, booking homes and booking cars.
You must be
Your fairy godmother?
Cinderella's dream comes true because the glass slipper fits.
It fits!
In our world, the right fit can be just as important, especially when it comes to car seats. Always choose a car seat that's the right fit for your child's age and size to make sure your little pumpkin gets there safely every time.
Hop in, dear. Thank you.
For more information, visit safercar.gov/the right seat. This message has been brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
It's 6:42 p.m. Time for Steve Plotto and his son Dylan to do the dishes. They talk about everything from the yuckiness of girls to the awesomeness of his soccer team. Sometimes they don't talk at all. Then, hey! The dreaded splash fight. It's Dad o'clock, and it's the best time of the day. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Remember when your neighbor found us naked in the car? And the time some outdoor action got us kicked out of the park? Getting frisky in the dark, I gave your eye a poke. I think the dog is also in the bed. Do I smell smoke, you and me? We never give up, you and me. We never, ever, ever give up. Getting hot and heavy with the whipped cream that we bought. Undressing in the kitchen and then getting caught. So many things can go wrong, but we still can get it right. You and me, we're not gonna give up tonight.
You didn't give up on sex. Don't give up on birth control either. There are more methods than you think. Visit bedsider.org to compare all the choices and put the bogus myths to bed at bedsider.org.
Boy, we got options tonight.
Brought to you by Bedsider and the Ad Council. Bedsider.org.
Hi, this is Joe Perry and Steven Tyler of Aerosmith for Red. You know, it's okay to rock and roll and party down. Just don't get in that 2,000-pound bullet when you're done and cocked. And please don't drink and drive. I'm the one that jaded you.
A reminder that friends don't let friends drive drunk. A public service message brought to you by the Ad Council, U.S. Department of Transportation, National Association of Broadcasters, and RAD.
Welcome back to Southern Sports Roundup. Last segment, y'all. Live from Armada FM studios in Atlanta, Georgia. Han Vance with you on Southern Sports Roundup. If you're a UGA guy like me, check out my Georgia blog. That's Big Harry Blog, BLAWG, BigHarryBlog.com. If you like college football, you love to live in Atlanta. If you like your rivals up in your face. I mean, I know so many Auburn guys. I know so many Clemson guys. I know so many Tennessee guys, so many Florida guys. I know so many Georgia guys who I can commiserate with. It's just fun to have everybody around and everyone in each other's face. And it goes a little too far sometimes when the booze flows. But, you know, it's cool to have all these rivalries. We do have the SEC championship in Atlanta. I still think Georgia has a great shot to go because Missouri's been nothing other than inconsistent. Missouri's been inconsistent this year. Georgia beat them 34-0. If they drop one game, Georgia's right in there as long as Georgia can survive Auburn. The Georgia-Auburn game is the oldest rivalry in the South, first played in Piedmont Park. Dogs have won 6 of 8 times. Only 2 times Auburn won. Those teams played for national championships. So only Auburn's best teams have been able to get past Georgia. And even going back to that 9th game, that was an undefeated Auburn team. So you look at Auburn's last 3 wins has been their best 3 teams. Anyone except their very best teams have gone down to the Dogs. I see Gurley coming back and just running roughshod on Auburn. I don't see them as dominant and powerful as the power running game as they used to be. So I like Georgia's chances in that one. Home game in Athens. I'm going to be up there for that. This week, Georgia gets Kentucky. Kentucky is actually pretty good at home. They have lost 19 road games. The last time they won a game on the road was when they defeated Georgia, November 21st, 2009. Oh, what a night it was. I had a really bad cold, but we got free tickets, so I went anyway. Joe Cox was quarterbacking a bad Georgia team or an average Georgia team. My lovely wife dumps a 64-ounce Coke on me at the start of the game. It was a cold game in Athens, night game. So I've stripped down to my tank top, shivering in the cold, wearing the Atlanta champagne all over my body, and watched the Dogs lose to the Big Blue. Not in basketball. It was pretty bad. Anyway, Georgia's heading up to the Bluegrass this week. Kentucky plays pretty well at home. They're much improved under Stoops, but that should be an easy win for Georgia. Then you got the Deep South's oldest rivalry. Looking around the SEC, you've still got a lot of big games out there. You've got Auburn and Alabama, the Iron Bowl. Ole Miss and Miss State, the Egg Bowl. You've also got Miss State and Bama yet to play. So these teams are going to knock each other out. They're going to eliminate each other. They're going to rough each other up. And someone's going to get through, but they're not going to get through unscathed. They're going to get through with some claw marks in their back. And that's just the way college football is. I'm going to go ahead and throw 4 teams out there I see making it. It's really hard to pick an SEC champ right now. It's really hard. I've had Georgia all along. I got to get off Georgia. I got to go with Florida State. Florida State's going to get there. I think Georgia's going to win the SEC, and Bama is going to get the nod as the SEC representative in the playoff without a championship. I see Oregon going. And then, I don't know, Michigan State. Okay, that's that. That means no Big 12. Nobody gets in. All those teams just eliminate each other. Nobody gets in. Big game this week for Bama. No one's talked much about LSU this year because LSU had 2 early losses. Bama at LSU. Going for a night game at LSU. LSU is 46-4 under less miles at home at night. Pulling that stat right out of my head. So you play 50 games, you've lost 4 of them. Probably going to win, that means. They've got it going. And if they can win, that'll really shake things up because if you lose 2 games, it's going to be very hard for you to make it. A team like Bama that gets so much media love would be the most likely to do it. But if you drop that second game, it's really going to be tough. What else is going on? We've got Presbyterian playing Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is going to bounce back. We got them Aggies going to the Plains to play Auburn. Looking bad for the Ags, and they're not having a great year. Mississippi State, Tennessee Martin. Not a big slate. Not a big slate out there in SEC schedule. When Tennessee Martin at Mississippi State gets televised, that means not a big slate for the SEC. I can't wait, though, for those big games. I can't wait for those big SEC West elimination games. Ole Miss is not there anymore. They've lost twice, but they can still make a big impact. LSU's lost twice. They're probably not there. They can make a big impact. And teams Georgia or Missouri can make a big impact. I'll probably end up getting into that Georgia Dome regardless of which team goes because I will be a Mizzou student at the time. So, hey, I mean, if Mizzou's there, get to see my school of affiliation at the moment get killed. Or if Georgia's there, I think Georgia would have a better chance because Todd Gurley is coming back. Briefly, he's going to make another brief appearance, and then he's off to the NFL riches. And this seems to keep happening in Athens. We get, our great players are not around that long. It's just a common trend. A.J. Green was suspended for 4 games, went pro early. Moreno, last year is real similar to this year in Athens. If you look at Gurley was hurt, and a lot of guys were hurt. And what happened? We won a couple times. We showed some heart, and then those injuries caught up to us. This year, those suspensions and lack of depth caught up to us because Sony Michel was hurt. Keith Marshall continues to be hurt. We had no second weapon behind Todd Gurley. I really think when we lost Gurley, we were just happy to win, and now it's really caught up to us. But I'm loving what's going on in the SEC. I'm loving the competitiveness and the parity across the conference. It's not something where Bama's this big empire that no one can beat. Ole Miss beat them. They're beatable. And I wouldn't be too surprised if LSU takes them out this week. But I did pick Bama to go to the championship, so that would be another wrong pick for me. We got a couple guys really showing out this year. Shane Ray has broken Michael Sam. Michael Sam set the record for sacks at Mizzou, and Shane Ray has already broken it 1 year in. It's not that far into the year to have 12 sacks. great sack master at A&M now is Myles Garrett. This guy's a freshman, and he already has the single-season sacks record. He had 3.5 sacks in the last game. He has 11 sacks. 11 sacks, 12 sacks this early into the year. You're about to get some NFL money. You're going to get paid. Because one thing that's a premium in the NFL is rushing the passer. It always has been. If you can get a defensive end who can get around and really get through on their own, that really sets a tone. They don't have to make sacks as long as they put a clock in the quarterback's head where he's getting rid of the ball faster. Go back to that Monday night game when Romo went down. It wasn't defensive end play so much as just blitzes, all out blitzes, and they weren't able to control the Redskins' pass rush. Romo gets hurt. He has a broken couple chip bones in his back and is talking about playing this week. Another Southern team, Dallas at Jacksonville. They went ahead and played that game in London because, London, Florida, same deal. So Jacksonville's so abysmal that they went ahead and gave their game to the Wembley Stadium. It's going to be a London NFL fest. They cheer at the wrong times, which I really enjoy. Like a long punt, they'll be like, yay, he kicked it far. So, they don't really understand the penalties. It's about like us watching soccer. World Cup this year had a pretty good turnout, though, as far as viewers in front of the TV set and sports bars in Atlanta. I was seeing people really into it. It was nice to see the international sport really getting some shine in the U.S. The national team was very disappointing to me, though. I know they made a run. I know they had some moments. I know Josie Altidore was hurt, and he was supposed to be the primary scorer or goal scorer, so that really hurt their chances. But the fact that they didn't play and didn't field a team that included Landon Donovan was just horrible. I really did not like what happened there. They let Landon come back into the U.S. national team after the World Cup and do like a retirement game, and he goes out and gets another cap. But this guy's the all-time greatest player, soccer player in the U.S. history by far, and for him not to get even on the team, and I know once Altidore went down, they kind of must have thought this is the situation where we wish we had Donovan, because he's the type of guy that would come off the bench and actually make some things happen. But it's another 4 years, and then the U.S. will be back at it. And soccer just falls off the radar. It really falls off the radar in the U.S. when it's not World Cup time. And we talk about football. We talk about basketball. Baseball has really gotten diminished. If you're not in San Francisco cheering for the Giants, if you're not in Kansas City happy this 1 year that your team's there, no one is really watching baseball and talking about baseball anymore, other than the teams who are really making a run. So it's become more of a regionalized sport. College football is the second most popular sport in the United States. The NFL is the most popular sport. In Atlanta and through the South, and in a lot of other markets, college football is at least as popular. If you throw out the fantasy leagues and other things, it's a college football world. I'm looking forward to this college football playoff. We're going to have a game in New Orleans. We'll have a game in Los Angeles and Pasadena, actually. And then we'll have a championship, finally, a playoff, not playoffs, a singular playoff at the Dallas Cowboys football stadium. Really looking forward to seeing those bright lights shine on January 12th. New Year's is when you'll have the play-in games. Atlanta, for the Peach Bowl, it's called the Peach Bowl again. There's 6 teams, 6 bowls. Peach Bowl, Cotton Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, Sugar Bowl, Rose Bowl, Orange Bowl. Those are your play-in games. And there's going to be 2 games and 1 championship. And there's going to be a champion. Even though there's going to be a lot of naysayers like me saying this wasn't fair, this team deserved a shot, at least there will be a champion. And someday, some year, please God, may it be my Georgia Bulldogs. Thanks for tuning in. Southern Sports Roundup. Big shout out to my boy Jeff Dates for calling in with them fantasy dates. That A-team, Z-team, who to plug, who to play. My boy Ray on the wheels of steel spinning that punk rock. Thank you. God bless you. I love you, Atlanta. I love you, America. Sports rules. Southern Sports Roundup. Good day.